They're still talking, yes. I think they both have since, yeah.
Come together. How you doing? All right, good to see you. Greg, good morning. Marianne, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming out on the snowy day. Everybody ready? Good morning. The spring legislative session is kicking off in Springfield now. Everybody's back from their breaks. Very important spring session. And this morning we wanted to meet with you and talk about our legislative priorities for this spring. First and foremost, I want to let you know that I am calling, we've already done it, calling for a 4 leaders meeting this Thursday in Springfield. The leaders of the 4 caucus and I to talk about legislative priorities for the spring. We've already done a little bit of it, but we're going to go deep this Thursday, with the primary focus being on getting a balanced budget. A truly balanced budget for a full year, not a partial year, a full year balanced budget with no new taxes that lives within our means. And to start that off by doing what law calls for in Illinois, and that is agreeing on revenue estimates for this year. Now, that has not been done properly in Illinois for years. We have not been looking at revenue estimates and then determining a budget. We've been doing it backwards. We're going to do it right this year. Let's get a revenue estimate that we agree on as the law calls for, and then do a balanced budget that lives within our means for a full year, not a partial, and that calls for no new taxes. That's number one, first priority. There are 5 other priorities that I'd like to just highlight for you all briefly this morning that are all very important. The second priority related to the balanced budget is to get an income tax reduction on the people of Illinois, and that is part of getting pension reform done. Once pension reform is approved by our courts, getting a $1 billion income tax cut. And to get that done, we are recommending that we get Senate Bill 16 fully passed and through to my desk. Senate Bill 16 passed the Senate last spring. It is in the House. It is ready to go. It's a bill. It's not perfect. I'd like to do more on pension reform, but it gets us going the right way. We should get Senate Bill 16 passed through the House. I will sign that bill, and then when I sign it, we'll get that in front of our state judiciary, and once they bless it as constitutional, then we will have a $1 billion income tax cut for the people of Illinois. Next priority is mandate relief and getting local control in Illinois so we can reduce our property taxes. We've got to bring down our property taxes. As part of that, we want to bring local control. Get local residents, local citizens, the ability to control their property tax levy through a simple referendum process. Get local voters to be able to consolidate local governments through a simple voter referendum process. Decide at the local level how prevailing wage, which projects need prevailing wage and which don't. Give local control on prevailing wage. Reduce school mandates and mandates on local governments, and we've got a list for those that we can get you the detail on that. Also, more flexibility in third-party contracting for local governments and schools, so we can help reduce the costs in our school districts and for our local governments. And to pass a law to prohibit teacher pension pickups from now going forward. We do not believe that's good policy. We should not have teacher pension pickups going on in the state of Illinois. So that's the package of mandate relief. We have specific legislation we'll be introducing in that regard. The next category of priority for us is further economic development in the state of Illinois. First priority is to update and improve our EDGE tax credit program. It has flaws in our existing EDGE credit plan. We'd like to change it and improve it, and we're going to call it Thrive, and we'll get you the detail on that. But we need to have a competitive tax incentive program to recruit more businesses. I'm proud of the fact that we've recruited many companies here since I became governor. We've added about 180,000 net new jobs in Illinois, but that's way too low. We can do far, far better than that. And that's a critical priority. We've got to grow our economy faster. And as part of that, we need to invest in our infrastructure. We need to expand and improve our road system and get more infrastructure construction done. We'll be introducing 2 pieces of legislation. One's already there. We're going to reintroduce it accelerate and lower the costs of our road construction by having a design-build program, integrating the design and build part of the process to lower costs for construction of our roads and increase the pace of our road construction and improvement, and also expand our public-private partnerships and, again, get the managed lane done on I-55 so we can move on and also do the Eisenhower Expressway and some of the other highways around the state. The next priority is public safety. Public safety, critical priority. You know that we've called for a task force, bipartisan task force from the legislature along with community experts. We want to improve our public safety through dealing with reducing gun violence, increasing support for our police officers, dealing with mental illness issues that impacts public safety. Also, we are going to be working closely with other states and pursuing a multi-state compact in terms of data sharing, information sharing, and to try to block off the illegal shipment of guns across state borders. And we'll be dealing with legislation around those issues of public safety. And then finally, and certainly not least important, is increasing the trust in our government, increasing ethics and integrity inside our government. And there are three primary elements to that. One is getting legislation passed to stop the process of legislators handling property tax appeals around the state. It's a conflict of interest. We have done that for workers' comp work. Legislators are not allowed to do workers' comp work outside. They should not be doing property tax work outside. I've done that by executive order for what I can do as a governor with prohibiting legislators from doing it to the Illinois State Property Tax Appeals Board. We need to do it at all property tax boards. We need to do that legislatively, number one. Number two, we have to be more aggressive on dealing with the sexual harassment issues in our state government. I've done that by executive order, but we need to do it by legislation as well to make it more comprehensive and more thoughtful and thorough. And we've got legislation introduced. We need to make sure that sexual harassment policies take precedence over all other regulations, including collective bargaining agreements. Sexual harassment and ethics, personal conduct should trump, be above, more important than all other agreements, including collective bargaining agreements. And then finally, we need to get done what we've been working on for years and to get term limits passed. Comprehensive term limits, 10 years for legislators, 8 years for constitutional office holders. That's the package of priorities that we'll be pursuing this spring. We believe it's good legislation, improves the future for the people of Illinois, can help bring down our property taxes, grow more jobs, have truly balanced budgets, and bring tax relief to the people of the state while bringing more integrity to the government and the people of Illinois. With that, I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Governor Sanguinetti to talk further about public safety, particularly as it relates to the opioid epidemic that is part of our public safety work. She'll talk about that, and then Senate Leader Bill Brady after that. Lieutenant Governor.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you. As you folks probably heard, back in 2016, we lost almost 2,000 Illinoisans due to overdoses on account of opioids. Now, when you think about that number, that's twice the amount of deaths comparing it to car accidents. Actually, more Americans are dying from opioid overdoses than from breast cancer. This is alarming. And this is why last year, our Governor Bruce Rauner indicated that we needed to have a plan in place and we needed to have a task force to attack this epidemic. As you all know, this epidemic knows no neighborhood, no color, no class. Now, as soon as we had the task force, the governor initiated a plan. I'm co-chair of that task force, and I've been traveling the state having field hearings, roundtables. And one thing that I could tell all of you is that there is a common denominator to most cases that opioids make it into our medicine cabinets. And that common denominator is when a dentist or a doctor writes a prescription, more times than none, it being overprescribed. Now, how are we going to deal with this problem? And what have people been telling us as we've been traveling the state, having field hearings? Well, those people testifying before us have told us in Central Illinois, a mother told us that she loved taking her kids to soccer, loved taking the girls to ballet, until one day she had an injury and she was prescribed opioids. She said she was hooked right away, and before she knew it, she began making new friends that were likewise other mothers in the same predicament, addicted to opioids. Before she knew it, she was doctor shopping, and all her friends and her called the opioids Mama's Little Helper. Changed her life. She lost her family, and before she knew it, she was in the streets of Chicago shooting up heroin. There's also the story in the city of Chicago of a young man that was a plumber, had it all, a very young family, everything to live for. Again, had an injury, was prescribed opioids. Before he knew it, he lost his small children, he lost his job as a plumber, he lost his family, he lost his home. Next step was, of course, heroin. And then, of course, you folks have heard the story of Rex Chapman. He's a superstar basketball player from the University of Kentucky. And he also had a 16-year addiction that he was battling. But it all started with OxyContin. And he said that in a matter of 3 days, he too became addicted. But now, gladly, he's in recovery. So, after this, we also heard that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has recognized that overprescribing opioids has contributed significantly to our opioid epidemic, and it now recommends limiting opioid prescriptions for patients suffering short-term acute pain to 3 days. 3. And the CDC says that more than 7 days' worth of opioid drugs should rarely ever be needed. Our task force took this to heart and conveyed this information to the governor. And today we're glad to report that the governor is in support of legislation to limit first-time prescriptions for opioids to 7 days or less. This is the responsible thing to do. Now, when we are dealing with prescriptions for minors, the practitioner is also required to explain to the parents or the guardian of the minor the risks associated with opioid use and the reasons why this prescription is necessary. If in the professional judgment of the practitioner, a more than 7-day prescription is necessary for the treatment of chronic pain management, cancer treatment, or palliative care, the practitioner must note that in the patient's records, and also indicate in those records that a non-opioid alternative was not appropriate in that particular case. Now, this is common sense. It's what the CDC is telling us that we need, and it's what we need to do to overcome this epidemic. Now, without further ado, I'd also like to present Senator Bill Brady for a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn, and Governor, thank you. And I applaud your efforts in the area of the opioid crisis and the leadership that this provides. This epidemic is affecting our nation's population in devastating ways, and your focus and your leadership has been so important. And Governor, I appreciate your leadership in the area of public safety and working to reduce the tax burden. I applaud the Governor for laying out a plan to give $1 billion in tax relief by adopting Senator Colleton's offer and acceptance savings, a voluntary program that would save the taxpayers $1 billion, and all the other things that we're working on in public safety. But mostly I think what's important here is the Governor's leadership in providing a balanced budget without raising the tax burdens on families and businesses. The Governor knows better than anybody, as he's traveled throughout this state, bringing new businesses to Illinois, but also understanding the challenges that face businesses when you've got high property taxes and high income taxes. Last year's budget passed by the Democrats not only put in place one of the largest tax increases this state has ever seen, but also was unbalanced. The Governor was right to veto that budget, not only because of the burden it placed on families and businesses, but because of the burden it puts on taxpayers by being unbalanced. We told the Democrats it was unbalanced last year. They denied it. It's been proven by the comptroller and others that this budget is unbalanced, which made it even more difficult for the Governor to come forward with a balanced budget and no tax increase. But working with his staff, Leader Durkin, our staffs and our caucuses have laid out a blueprint that will give security to the people of Illinois and a surety knowing that we can move forward. Now, they may not agree with everything in it. I'm sure the governor didn't like everything in his budget. I'm sure Leader Durkin didn't, and I know I had questions. But the most important thing the governor knew was that we had a responsible plan that met the constitutional obligation. So as we enter this last 7.5 weeks of session, it's important that we complete this work by the end of May, by our constitutional requirement. And the governor's leadership in bringing us back after an extended recess to make sure that we immediately get focused on this is what governors should do. So I applaud him for that. I trust that Speaker Madigan and President Culleton will work with the governor and Leader Durkin and our caucuses to get this done. But we don't have any time to waste. And that's why I think it's so important that the governor brings us together. We have an opportunity to show leadership in a way that I think can emphasize Illinois' turning the corner, not only behind the scenes as the governor's done in his administration, but publicly, so that we can focus on doing things like attracting Amazon and ensuring they come here and other businesses that this state needs so desperately. So I applaud the Lieutenant Governor's efforts in terms of all the hard work she's doing. I think she's the hardest working Lieutenant Governor ever, and that's much to the credit of Governor Rauner, who's asked her to do that, and Governor Rauner's efforts in making sure that we don't sit and delay anymore, and that we move this state forward in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Will that open up to any questions?
Governor, there's a lot of red meat in here for conservatives. Is this your effort to try to unify the party prior to the general election?
This is our proposals to create a better future for the people of Illinois. We need to bring down our property taxes. We need to grow more good-paying jobs. We need to bring overall tax relief to the people of our state, and we need to restore the integrity, the ethical behavior in our government, and that's what our proposals are about.
Is it also a way of you to induce greater numbers of Republicans to get on board with this, by proposing something that has got some solid conservative thinking in it?
Everything about these proposals is really bipartisan or nonpartisan. It's really not about Republicans or Democrats. This is good policy. This is good government. Many of these things have been done by Democrats in other states. Democrats in California have done term limits. Democrats in Rhode Island have done pension reform. Democrats in Massachusetts have done workers' comp reform. These proposals are not partisan. They're not Democrat or Republican. They're good government. They create a better future for everyone.
What are you redistricting?
I'm sorry?
What happened to redistricting?
We will always be advocating for redistricting reform. As I think you know, we attempted to get that done through voter referendum, and the Speaker sued, and he beat us in state court. We have had legislation introduced in the past to get partisanship out of our districting reform, and we will always continue to advocate for that.
Why isn't it a priority along with term limits this year?
Well, you know, there are about 44 things I'd like to get done. We've got to pick what we think we can get done in the spring session. I would love to get redistricting reform done. That would be fantastic.
Governor, one thing that State Representative Ott said a number of times recently, that if you really believed in repealing that $5 billion tax increase, when you proposed your budget earlier this year, and proposing it again now, I guess, you wouldn't talk about $37 billion of spending, which includes that $5 billion increase. You talk about spending being at, if you're going to balance it at $32 billion, don't use that $5 billion, then you're showing people you really want to repeal the $5 billion income tax. What do you say to State Representative Ives on that issue?
Everything I say is to all the people of Illinois, and I say we're going to create a better future by reducing the income tax burden, by reducing the property tax burden, by growing more jobs in the state, and increasing the integrity and ethics in our government. The only way we'll have truly balanced budgets for the long term is to increase our rate of economic growth and reduce the pace of growth in our government spending. These are the changes we're making. It can't be done immediately overnight, doesn't work that way, but we can get there in the next few years.
Speaking of Jeannie Ives, obviously you're going to need her help and support getting things through. If you want to reach out to conservatives, have you had any conversations with her yet? Now that we're done with the primary, and what would you say to her to try to bring her on board and get her support behind your agenda?
What we need is the support of everyone in the state, Republicans, independents, Democrats. We need everyone to come together to push back against the corruption and the failure of the existing regime that's controlled our state. This election is really not about Democrats versus Republicans. This election is about the people uniting against a corrupt machine of self-dealing, unethical behavior, insider transactions, higher taxes that benefit a few against the people. That's what this election is about. And if you look at everything that we're recommending, it is bipartisan or nonpartisan. It is good government to grow jobs, reduce the tax burden, and increase ethics and integrity.
But if you can't get somebody who got 50% of the vote, nearly, in a primary on board, in your own party, on board with this agenda, publicly, standing up here, even on the phone, how is this going to be something that you can get Democrats on board with? I mean, you may say it's nonpartisan, but if you can't get, again, somebody who came pretty close to capturing that GOP nomination on board, how would anybody else sign on?
Everything we're recommending is unifying and bipartisan, 100%. And we believe that we will get this done, this plan, this legislative set of priorities, and it will be victorious for the people of Illinois for reforms in November.
Have you spoken to Jeannie Ives? Have you and Jeannie Ives spoken? Have you reached out to her? Can you just walk us through your contact with her, your plans to talk with her, all this?
We called her, her office right after the primary. We were told at the time that she did not have an interest in speaking with me or meeting with me at this point. That's the current status. Hopefully we'll be talking soon. I'll look forward to that. In the meantime, I've been traveling the state, meeting with elected officials, Republican activists, grassroots activists, as well as Democrats, as well as business owners, as well as community leaders, to talk about the importance of coming together to change our system. Illinois is broken. We've been under a corrupt regime for years. We've got to come together, all of us. Doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent. The current system is broken. We need to unite to change. Everyone can agree we should have term limits. Everybody agrees on that. Everybody agrees we've got to bring down our property tax burden. Everybody. Everybody agrees we've got to grow more good-paying jobs in the state of Illinois. We are advocating things we can all agree on. They are not partisan.
What about the progressive income tax? Where are you on that?
Oh my goodness. Let me be crystal clear. Disaster for the state of Illinois. Disaster. Horrible policy. Marianne, I don't know if you probably have friends in New Jersey, or all of you would. Call any of your friends in New Jersey. Ask them how it's going. Call your friends in Connecticut. Ask them how it's going. Call your friends in California, New York. They can't balance their budgets. They can't pay their pensions. They can't fund their necessary services, and their businesses are leaving their states, and they keep having to raise their taxes constantly, even though they put in a graduated income tax, and even though they've got some of the highest property taxes in America. We can't solve our problems through higher taxes. It won't happen. We've got to increase our competitiveness of our economy, grow our economic base, and reduce the pace of government spending increase. That's the way to balance budgets. And to be very clear, Marianne, and I appreciate your asking the question, there's false narrative out there that the planned graduated income tax, let's just tax millionaires. You know, they got money, let's tax them. First of all, business owners will flood out of the state, will lower our tax base, but more importantly, in every state that puts in a graduated income tax, the middle class ends up paying more. The middle class gets whacked in the end. They'll deny it right now, but if you look, you guys can go find it. The Democrats they made a mistake. They actually leaked one schedule. Pritzker doesn't want to leak his schedule yet, but they leaked it. Martwick put out a schedule. Look at what the middle class pays in that schedule. A lot more. They want to tax everybody, and we can't tax our way to prosperity. The people of Illinois are taxed out.
Governor, Chris Roling, who you know, I think, he was a big supporter of yours. He's a radio, TV pundit. He has said the base, your relationship with the Republican base is broken and it's irreparable. He cites the lack of integrity. He was a supporter of yours. You changed your positions. You changed your positions on taxes. You let that tax increase go through. This is what he says. He didn't expect you to support.
There's a lot of false statements out there.
He didn't let you think you would support sanctuary state. Didn't think you would sign a bill that had a Chicago bailout. he lists it, you can watch it tonight at 8:30, Channel 21. He lists it all, but seriously, he lists it all, and he says there's no way, he said he'll skip the governor's ballot, he'll skip the governor's vote. And he says many others will do it, maybe the 340,000 who voted for Ives. She says she will vote for you, but she won't say she'll support you. So how do you change that? How do you repair that base? It sounds like you're just gonna ignore it.
Is this a narrative?
No, it's just a question. It sounds like you're gonna just ignore all of those things I said, Roebling said, and you're gonna just say the base will somehow support you. Can you tell us how you get the base to support you?
Everything that we're advocating is bipartisan and unifying. Everything. Term limits, property tax relief, more economic growth, income tax reduction, unifying, bipartisan, nonpartisan, and we will unite the people of Illinois against a corrupt, broken machine, and we will change the system.
Talking about gun violence, what about the gun bills that you have vetoed? What's going to happen? I know you've got a task force, but there's a time limit coming up. Folks are gonna be pushing the next couple of weeks to see these passed.
Oh, I agree with you, Mary Ann. We need to move expeditiously. I'm disappointed that so far the Senate Democrats have not chosen to participate in our bipartisan task force yet. I hope that the Senate Democrats will join here shortly. We need to take strong action to reduce the violence in our communities and in our schools, and we can do this. There are good policy moves that we can make that are respectful of our federal Constitution, but that will actually significantly increase public safety, reduce gun violence. And we are going to be coming forward in the next few weeks with very specific proposals on a bipartisan basis.
What are you going to do with the bill that's already on the desk right now to change the waiting period for assault weapons?
We'll be talking about that as part of an overall package in the coming few weeks.
Who's gonna govern it? First, marijuana.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good morning.